Hey guys, Freak Tank here, and today I'm gonna do a little tutorial on how to play Protection Warrior in PvE. So the basic things to do as a Protection Warrior is to see if you're capped in the three stats that are most important for a Protection Warrior who likes to raid ICC or just heroic dungeons. The first thing you need is to be capped in defense. So the cap for heroic dungeons is 540 to get uncrittable by the mobs or the bosses. The raid cap is 545 to get uncrittable in ICC, TOC, whatever. Then the second most important stat is hit rating. You need 8% hit rating to not miss with your abilities. If you're just starting to gear and you're low on hit rating, you can always get the glyph of taunt, which gives your taunt extra percentage of unmissable taunt, but I'll do glyphs later. Then the third stat for me important is expertise. You need 26 expertise to be able to not be dodged by the bosses and parried. A lot of warriors don't really care about expertise because they think, yeah, stamina all the way is the best way. But protection warrior, just like a feral druid bear, all their damage is physical. So to not to not be dodged or parried by a boss is a big difference in your threat per second level. Because if you like get dodged by revenge, for example, that's a lot of threat that's gone. And in the current guild I am, the DPS sure know how to steal threat if you don't be careful with what you do. But it's kind of like a talent stat you don't really need, it's optional. But I like to have it because yeah, it's personal preference. I also use a ring to get more expertise. I gem expertise till you get the soft cap, which is 27. And after that, when you get those three stats, defense rating 545, hit rating 8%, and 26 expertise. Yet again, expertise is optional. You don't really need it if you don't want it. You can just stack stamina. As you can see, I gem here parry, stamina. It's basically just so you get more health, so the healers have more time to heal you and stuff like that. The next thing I'm gonna show you is my talent tree. Like I said, this is just a basic guide, so don't expect too much in-depth explanation on the talents. Of course, this is my talent, this is what I use, this is what works for me. Of course, you can just switch some talents if you want. But what works for me is this build with these glyphs, which I will show you in a second. So the first talent is in the arms tree, which is improved heroic strike. Then deflection increases parry chance by 5%. Then the next tier is basically just filler talents, which are improved charge, iron will, and tactical mastery. I use improved charge because sometimes when I tank random dungeons, I get rage starved on mobs, and when I charge I get a little bit more. Most of the tanks use Iron Will 2 points because yeah, less stun duration is quite useful in raids, but in ICC you don't get stunned that much, so improve charge for me. Of course you can put it in Iron Will at your own desire. Then the next tier is 2-2 Impale. Increases the critical strike damage of your abilities by 20%. Of course, more damage is more threat per second for a protection warrior. There are no better talents in this tree. Just take these two and deep wounds. Another bleed damage over time effect. Yet again, more damage is more threat. It's less likely for your guild members to take aggro and die. Then we move on to the protection tree, when we start with shield specialization, then improved thunderclap, insight, anticipation, last stand, improved revenge of course, shield mastery, toughness, then the next tier no talents, then the next tier concussion blow, gag order, one-handed weapon specialization, improved defensive stance, vigilance, focused rage, vitality, warbringer, devastate, critical block, sword and board, a very helpful talent, more on this later, one damage shield, and shockwave. So this is just my basic defensive build for my protection warrior. Then the glyphs I use is Glyph of Defense. After using Revenge, your next Heroic Strike costs no rage. This is very useful because you'll be using Heroic Strike a lot. And when I say a lot, it's all the time, because Heroic Strike generates a lot of threat. Then Glyph of Heroic Strike. You gain 10 rage when you critical strike with your Heroic Strike ability. You'll be using, like I said, you use Heroic Strike all the time. That's why I got it macroed on some of my abilities. But if you don't have the basic knowledge of how to generate rage and Heroic Strike, then I wouldn't be using this a lot in the beginning. When you're starting to gear, don't spam this because you will go out of rage and then you won't have rage to keep aggro on all the mobs. Then the next glyph is Glyph of Blocking. Like I said before, you can switch one of these three, probably Glyph of Blocking with Glyph of Taunt, if you don't have enough hit rating in the beginning when you start leveling, when you start gearing, sorry. So increases your block value by 10% for 10 seconds after you use Shield Slam ability. This is quite a useful glyph to use because you use Shield Slam a lot, but I'll go over rotation in a second. So yeah, the minor glyph doesn't really matter. I use Glyph of Bloodrage, Glyph of Command, and Glyph of Battle. Now the talents, the spell, the abilities. What I use most is Shield Slam and Revenge and Heroic Strike. Those three are your bread and butter. Those three are the best talents, the best abilities you're gonna be using all the time after you use Devastate, of course. So what I like to do on one single target mobs is I start off with a heroic throw and a charge all together. Then I pop shield block, which is macroed with my blood rage, generates instant 20 rage at the cost of health, but because we got a minor glyph, no health is taken. So your chance to block and block value by 100% for 10 seconds. Then I use shield slam, revenge if it usually is ready, because when you block, because you use shield block and then you block the attack from the boss or the mob you will be fighting, and it will be ready to use. Then I'll start appending Thunder Armor with Devastate. You need 5 stacks of this to lower the mob's armor by 20%. This is kinda useful, always have this at 5 stacks. This is also macroed with my Heroic Strike, and Revenge is also macroed with Heroic Strike, because after Revenge you don't spend rage on Heroic Strike. Let's see, Heroic Strike. A strong attack that increases melee damage by 495 and causes a high amount of threat. Causes 173 additional damage against dazed targets. So basically what I do is I use Heroic Strike, Charge, Shield Block plus the Blood Rage macro, Shield Slam, Revenge if usable, Thunderclap. It it does a little bit of damage and decreases the time between their attacks by 20%. So it's kinda useful, you get hit less, and then I start applying Devastate Thunder Armor. This is kinda my rotation for the single target. Also, you keep using Shield Slam, Revenge of cooldown. Those two abilities macroed into your Heroic Strike will be less likely to have some people pull aggro from you. Of course, Warrior is hard and it takes a lot of time and skill to get it 100% right. You'll be failing a lot at the beginning, going rage starved, but don't give up. I mean, it's not easy, but Protection Warriors are awesome. Okay, so this is my one mob rotation. Then we go to the AoE rotation. Protection Warriors are not the best AoE tanks because they can hold aggro from best from 4 mobs at a time. 4 mobs or less. Basically I start with shield block, charge, then I collect the mobs, use thunderclap, and then I go in front of them and use shockwave. And shockwave sends a wave in front of the warrior causing 3425 damage based on attack power and stuns the mobs. So then you have time to use cleave. Cleave is a sweeping attack that does your weapon damage plus 222 to the target and its nearest ally. Use this, cleave and thunderclap for AoE tanking a lot. Of course, cleave and heroic strike don't go on the same. They have the same cooldown, so you can't use both at the same time. So on single target you use heroic strike, and on AoE targets you use cleave. What else did I forget to say? Oh yeah, you got a couple of shouts as a warrior. The best shout to use as a protection warrior is commanding shout, which increases your health. Also, don't forget to demo shout, which decreases the attack power of all enemies by 410 for 30 seconds. So basically when you're on AoE tanking just normal one tank mob, use demoralizing shout after your first batch of special rotation, rotation or whatever. If you start, just use it when you feel like you want to use it. Then you got taunt, which taunts the mob off you when someone gets aggro. You got vigilance, which will put like a shield on the target and takes 10% of their threat and transfers it to me, to the protection warrior. Then your interrupt, you got shield bash and concussion blow. Also, shockwave is sort of like a stun, so it interrupts most of the heroic dungeon mobs. The cooldowns for a protection warrior are shield block, which gives you a chance to block and block value by 100%. Shield wall reduces all damage taken by 60% for 12 seconds. Enraged regeneration. You regenerate 30% of your total health over 10 seconds. And last stand. When activated, this ability temporarily grants you 30% of your maximum health for 20 seconds. Like I said, these are your defensive cooldowns and should be used when in a pitch. Like, for example, in ICC I use it mostly on the Sindargosa fight in third phase, so you take less damage and the healers have an easier time to heal you. And for example, if you're near the end of a fight and the healer died, use this to be less likely to die. Of course, it only lasts for about 10-12 seconds, so you can't really uh, you can't really waste the beginning. Of course, I'm a Tauren, so I got an extra interrupt, which is War Stomp. And then one more ability I would like to talk about, Mocking Blow. A lot of warriors ask me if I use Mocking Blow in my standard rotation, and I tell them no. Because it's a 1 minute cooldown, it generates a lot of threat, and it focuses the target you use it on to attack you for 6 seconds. Of course you can use it in your rotation, but I really don't have a problem with aggro unless there's no rogue or hunter in my raid and they don't give me enough time to get the aggro from a boss or a mob or whatever. So yeah, this can be useful, but I don't really use it in my standard rotation. Of course, when we start in ICC on like a boss like Lord, and I see we got a lot of warlocks, mages, and whatever that pulls high aggro, I can use it to keep the boss on me till I get some revenges and Sunder armor off. But of course, if you lose aggro, you can just retaunt. But yeah, Mocking Blow is nice to use when you don't feel comfortable with your aggro level at the time. So yeah, this is basically all this. Oh yeah, as I said, Bloodrage generates 20 rage for 24 in addition to health, but basically just to generate rage. But you can also use Berserker Rage, which will give you a little bit more rage when you get damaged. So basically, if you start a boss and you don't feel quite comfortable with the rage you have at the moment, you can just use Blood Rage and Berserker Rage at the same time, because you'll see once you get used to working with Heroic Strike and stuff, you'll see that your rage will be empty most of the time. Yeah, I think I covered the basics of the Protection Warrior. Let's now see if I can show you guys what I mean. If I get instant Q, and of course I did not get. You can always ask me questions if you're not sure what I meant or what I said, or of course this is what I use and what works for me. Some other warriors may use different rotation or a different spec or whatever. This is just for me. I made this for a friend who just started playing WoW and would like to play Protection Warrior. So this is just a basics, uh, yeah, a little guide to help him understand the Protection Warrior spec a little bit. I'm just trying to get into Koran. Of course, Protection Warriors are not the easiest tank, spec, class, whatever you want to start off with. If you're not comfortable with tanking before, I surely wouldn't advise to play this. But you can just use this little guide if you really want to, or not use it. I mean, I'm not gonna force you. And we got Q, so let's see how it goes. Come on, healer AFK, of course. I don't want to waste too much time on this video. I mean, it's already annoying to listen to my voice. So yeah, this was my basic guide of how to play the Protection Warrior. If you got questions, feel free to ask me on Freak Tank or Acid Bustar on my server. Thanks for watching, I guess. See ya.